ladies, this is where things get juicy. This is where you'll go, oh my gosh, why didn't I know about this sooner? Whether you've had your period for years, or you just got your period, or you haven't gotten your period yet, you may be wondering, does my menstrual cycle actually have anything to do with me? Like, it's this thing that happens to me. I have eggs and I release them every month, and my uterus just like creates an environment for a baby to grow in, and I also bleed every month. Like, what's my story in all of this? I think it's important to make the distinction between what's physiologically happening inside of us, meaning the processes that are physically going on in our bodies, which I have a video for and I will link on the screen and down below, and what it is we actually experience of these processes. Meaning, while our bodies build up a uterine lining, and while an egg is released and our uterine lining is shed, what does that really mean for us? What is it that we are experiencing? This is where the teaching and learning of menstruality come into play. The menstrual cycle is a cycle. It's a group of events that happen in a particular order, one after another, and repeated. The menstrual cycle is a cycle that is naturally occurring. It's not some man-made cycle, it's a natural one. And do you know what else is a natural cycle? The seasons of nature. The seasons of nature also occur in a particular order, one following the other, and repeated. And it does so with purpose, just like our menstrual cycle. To understand our personal stories of how we experience the menstrual cycle, we look to the seasons of nature because our bodies inwardly mimic winter, spring, summer, and fall as we move through the menstrual cycle. So let's get started with the teachings of these inner seasons. We'll start with inner winter, which is menstruation. Inner winter is the menstrual phase, and this is when you have your period. You know how in the season of winter, the trees are bare and it's cold outside, and we retreat into our homes to find warmth and restoration. You might think of a bowl of hot soup and the sun setting early, an urge to take a hot shower and be covered under warm blankets. Less of an interest being out and about in the hustle and bustle of life, and instead be inside, warm and cozy. It is the same with inner winter, the time of your cycle when you have your period. It's a time when the outside world becomes less appealing. It's a time when we're called to retreat and find warmth and restoration, a time to restore. We're releasing the old in preparation for the new. Next comes spring, and in spring, the ice thaws. The sun is out for a little longer. There's hints in the air of new life and new beginnings. It's the same in inner spring, which is the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle. And I'll note here that while the follicular phase technically starts with menstruation, when understanding our personal story of the menstrual cycle, it's helpful to think of menstruation as its own season and the time right after menstruation as its own season too. Because what we feel during our period and what we feel during the time after we've stopped bleeding is very different, and it calls for us to do different things. So, in this inner spring, in this post-period time, life is coming back to you. Inspiration comes in, new ideas come in, ideas of what you want to do in life and who you want to be. Enthusiasm and motivation start returning back to you. It's like waking up once again after the cold of winter. As we know from nature, after spring comes summer. Think of the super long days and the sun high and bright in the sky. In inner summer, which aligns with the ovulation phase of the menstrual cycle, your energy and zest for life is much like the long days of summer. Your confidence is up, and like the heat of summer, you are ablaze. And just like that, from the zesty, long, energetic days of summer, we come into autumn. The leaves on the trees are changing color and they're falling to the ground. The sun shifts in the sky and starts to set earlier. Things start to slow way down. In inner autumn, or the luteal phase, we get this same call from our bodies to go inward and slow down. Our own metaphorical leaves start to fall, like our energy levels and our optimism. And many of us associate this time with PMS symptoms or premenstrual syndrome symptoms like headaches and cramps and fatigue and mood swings. And with this natural shift inward, this natural slowing down, just like autumn goes to winter in the seasons of nature, the same happens here. We go from inner autumn to inner winter, which, remember, inner winter is menstruation. Now, the seasons of nature cycle through whether we want them to or not. And each season naturally makes us feel different things and makes us want to do different things. Nature's seasons act as direct proof that nature has a direct impact on how you feel and what it is you do within each season. And the menstrual cycle does the same thing. It has a direct impact on how you feel and what it is you feel most inclined to do within each inner season. In nature, the seasons shift from one to the next because of the tilt of the earth as it rotates around the sun. And in the menstrual cycle, the inner seasons shift because of hormones. The earth has different responses to different seasons. Women have different responses to different seasons. And I want to take a moment here because you may be listening to all of this and thinking, okay, Greta, this is cool, but I don't really experience any signs of these inner seasons. Or maybe your inner seasons feel counter to what I'm saying. Like maybe you never feel the high energy of inner summer, or maybe you never feel a strong urge to rest and retreat in inner winter. And honestly, a lot of us probably feel this way, and for a variety of reasons. Number one, everyone experiences their menstrual cycle differently. Regardless of anything I say or you hear from anyone else, your experience of your menstrual cycle is your experience of it. And we all experience it differently because we're all different. But there are some different things that definitely impact our experience of it, or our lack of connection to this inner process that's going on. And some of those things can be just simply being out of touch with ourselves, which makes sense because our world, or at least our society, is really set in menstrual denial, meaning that the way that things are set up in our world, things like school and work, it really has nothing to do with our body's natural timing and natural needs. Living by this standard or expectation teaches us to live within patterns and timing that's not our own. Other things can make us feel unfamiliar with these inner seasons as well. Like if you're on a birth control pill or patch or any contraceptive like that where you're changing your natural hormones, you're really putting yourself in an artificial state. So you're not really in the natural menstrual cycle. So you wouldn't be experiencing these inner seasons because you're just in a different state of being, literally. Your body isn't going through this cycle, so you wouldn't be experiencing it. And there's so many other factors like our physical health and our mental health. Both our physical health and mental health determine how we experience life, and so it'll also, of course, alter how we each individually experience our menstrual cycles too. So there's a lot that has influence on knowing these inner seasons and experiencing them. And like I said before, we're all going to experience them slightly differently, but it's really helpful to come to know these cues so that we know how to better care for ourselves in each of these inner seasons, and so that we don't start to put blame on ourselves. If we're seemingly suddenly feeling fatigued and unmotivated and we just want to work on some other project, or we just want to get rest, you know, if we don't know that that's something our bodies naturally crave in the second half of our menstrual cycle, we might start feeling bad about ourselves instead of being able to embrace that and say, oh, this is something that my body's asking me to respond to. It's not something that like makes me lazy or something that I just have to like push past. I don't know, hopefully that makes sense. So with all of this being said now, I want to talk about a really integral practice to getting to know your whole menstrual cycle. And this is a journaling practice called MCA, which stands for Menstrual Cycle Awareness. MCA is a really great and simple way to get in tune with your cycle. It's a process of journaling and documenting every day of your menstrual cycle so that you can come to know your unique patterns and rhythms. It's basically building up awareness of all these different changes that happen throughout your cycle and creating awareness of these patterns so that you can better know yourself and your cycle. So what you will come to realize is that what you once thought of as random days of fatigue, or random days of super high energy, or random days of potent creativity, or random days of whatever, any dominant feeling, things will start to follow a pattern. And essentially, what you're doing is creating a documentation of yourself. You're gathering data on you. And this is so important because it provides you with a level of stability and predictability in the ever-changing hormonal landscape of the female experience. And this is what allows you to start working with yourself instead of against yourself. So maybe now is the time that you consider getting to know yourself a little bit better. Also, so many of us just never really consider that this is a way to get to know ourselves more. We're not really led to believe that there's anything to be understood or gained from our menstrual cycles. And that can be such a loss. And I really hope that you'll be inspired to get to know yourself in this way. And maybe this is the time too that you consider that just like the seasons of nature, you too are a part of nature. Maybe now is the time that you consider that what's going on inside of you as a woman has a whole lot to do with your life story. Maybe now is the time. This has honestly just been a brief introduction to a handful of menstruality teachings. There is way more to be blown away by and way more to the topics that I've introduced today. And so before you head off, I hope you'll subscribe so that when a new video comes in from me, you'll be ready to learn a little bit more about you. Like this video to support growing the knowledge of the menstrual cycle, and leave me a comment down below because I would love to hear from you. From the growing light in me to the growing light in you, I will see you next time.